I heard somebody say this the other day, and I don't know. I instantly thought, oh, I want to see what the guys think of this. They said that right now the biggest movie star is Christopher Nolan.
Damn.
And I was like, if you're going to stretch the definition of movie star to
Um,
include directors, but I do think it's the name. Like
yeah.
if by star we mean name, I do think you could make a case that at least he's in the conversation with whoever else you might mention if you were to mention a name that can open movies. We've kind of been talking for years now on this show about how there really aren't that many actor names that open movies reliably. I think Gosling is another example of that. Like it's not to say that he
Right.
won't and can't, it's just that it won't be him alone that gets people in the door. And I do think Christopher
Right.
Nolan is one of those kind of brands that means something to enough people
Mm,
that they'll check out what he's doing. I didn't know. What do you guys think of that? And if not, who do you think of? Even if I guess we could add James Cameron maybe to that to say like if you're going to say who's a name brand that gets a certain number of people in the door, I think James
yeah.
Cameron
For
does.
sure. I mean,
But I mean, are we really saying that directors are stars in that way, or is
yeah,
if we're talking
I
about names, it doesn't make a difference. We are talking about just why do people go to the theater?
no, there's definitely a point to be made that a director can be the brand or the name or the star
Yeah.
now. I mean,
Hmm.
he's a great example. I'm sure James Cameron, Quentin Tarantino, different there's many directors that kind of have this not just a following in terms of support, people that will go see anything they do, but also just like a kind of movie that they're making that people, that
Yeah.
somehow like the Venn diagram of what makes me go to a theater. Most of these filmmakers are making movies that still touch one of those things that pull people to theaters even without an amazing brand name director on them, in most cases. Maybe not as much for Tarantino, but like um, even you could make a case for some of his movies, even. But I mean, I
Hmm.
just think that there are definitely directors. Jordan Peele, I think, is probably one of them.
Yeah.
That equates to box office branding
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, he's a
as a
great example.
filmmaker.
I think
Yeah,
even
I don't
Greta
know.
Gerwig now might be a name that could come up in that way. Not to say that she's going to make a movie a hit. I'm just saying that she's
Yeah,
got a name as a director
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
can connect to a few things, and it feels
Yeah.
like it's got something behind it. But Jordan
That's
Peele's a great example.
I think
Right,
some of it I call it the what's the guy that used to the guy that owns the Mavericks.
Mark
It's kind
Cuban.
of Mark Cuban effect. It was like this. I feel like there once was a time where like people were very separate from their business, like there was some mystery to it. And Mark Cuban was the first person that I heard talk frequently. And then there was Dana White, who's basically like, event would happen, and he'd be like, this person sucks. I don't think they deserve to be here. This is very
Right.
weird. And then, James Cameron's always kind of maintained this if you listen to him throughout the years. But the
Yeah.
fact that there's so many more places where he can be honest, where he can be straightforward about it, this like transparency and like the fact that I can right now I can be like, I have a theory, James Gunn, about Superman. Message him, and if it's a good enough question, he'll say, you might be in the right direction, or
Or if it's a
nah,
bad enough question that
oh
he just has to shoot, he has to shoot this one in the head. Like he has to get it.
yeah.
Like I can't
Yes,
let this one
because
be out there. But you're right.
yes. It's a different time. The accessibility of directors in their process is so much more there now. Like the fact
Yeah.
that whenever a movie comes out, Steve can watch it behind the scenes about it. That's crit. Like that was never a thing. Like we'd have to go to we'd have to go to Blockbuster, get the
Sure.
DVD, watch the behind the scenes. It's everywhere. You could watch
Yeah.
a late night interview with a director. You could watch the cast talk about the director. It is crazy. But I only say that to say that because of that, this turnaround with Christopher Nolan literally came from his media run. Seeing who he was, him being a little more loose and laughing with the cast, you're like, holy shit, like maybe he isn't as stiff and weird and mean as I may have thought he may
Right.
have been. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
He's like this interesting guy that has a lot of like thoughts about his films, and hearing him talk about even what's the name even messed me up a little bit, like the time one, Tenet. when he's just sitting at the table and he's like, Tenet is easier to understand than you think. All you have to do is A, B, and C. And he just explains Tenet in 2 seconds. And I'm like, all right, let me rewatch it with this new information. I only say that to say there's like this accessibility that's created it. And there are tons of directors that I like a lot now because of even if they're assholes. I like that James Cameron's an asshole. I like that he's kind of a villain a little bit. Who's gonna be as honest as he is? Or Scorsese being like, fuck Marvel. I love that, man. I love that people have opinions that aren't popular opinions. It's cool. So I feel like I went on a rant.
Oh
No,
no,
you're
no,
good.
but I think you're right. I mean, I think that I mean, I've been doing a lot of research for this Coen Brothers podcast thing I've been putting together, and it's been interesting seeing the amount of stuff that's out there on some films and not on others. But to say that there's like to think that these interviews aren't happening or these conversations aren't happening or these directors aren't going on podcasts, whatever, you're just not digging deep enough. There's so much material out here with these people that you would think would be like a really good get for somebody, but then you find out though, oh, they did an hour and a half long Q&A at this one film center or whatever, and it's like, yeah, you can find those clips. I do kind of miss the days of bonus features being at their height, where you
Me
could
too.
just buy the DVD or the Blu-ray and get all that great stuff. But there is still some stuff being produced, especially now in that age. And I guess we're, examples of it, the podcast age of just conversations that can stretch out a little bit more. You will occasionally find something really crazy. And sometimes it'll be like a director introducing another director at a screening of their film. And then, so you get a conversation between, Christopher Nolan and I can't remember. Oh, it was, him and Safdie and
Nathan Fielder.
Nathan Fielder. God, I couldn't remember Nathan
Oh,
Fielder's last
wow.
name. It was talking about their show, talking about the finale of that, or maybe it was the premiere. But either way, it was like a conversation that kind of what you were saying, Ronald. Christopher Nolan was there. It was this great back and forth between these creators, but it also was an opportunity for Christopher Nolan to kind of show that he is not such a stuffed shirt, or if he is a stuffed shirt, he still enjoys things like Nathan Fielder's comedy, and he's known to be a fan of MacGruber, that kind of thing. I just think that there's room for these guys to kind of show a little personality. So it is an interesting thing. I mean, I do wonder if if that will change, if there will be a whole new crop of stars that will be kind of our traditional idea of the stars of yesteryear, or if it'll just be this kind of new evolving thing where everything is a little bit ambiguous and everything is, to overuse that awful word, brand, but where everything is a little bit of a branding thing. I mean, you could say that someone like Zendaya has a following that carries over to something, but I don't think it like makes something a blockbuster automatically. But there's definitely like an audience for her that's going to follow her from her show to a movie that she's in, and there's a kind of cult of personality around that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if she's.
For
I mean,
sure.
like again, I
I'm
saw it with
excited
Dune as well, but you don't know if she could actually be the kind of star that we're talking about, or maybe she already is to some people, and it's just we're in a fractalized time where there's a lot of separate sort of versions of star power happening.
Yeah. I think she probably is like, probably the top of whatever the current new version of a star is.
Yeah.
She's definitely one or two on that list, I would imagine.
Well, would people talk about her new movie as the new Zendaya movie? And I think they would. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk
definitely,
about
it's like, it's just like, it's on some level, the answer is yes.
Right.
People associate that is the new Zendaya film. It's just it like the whole equation has been rewritten, in terms of what is successful and what got it to be successful, like in that case, it's like a really good trailer, a star, and a really respected and fairly well-known director. But what weight does each of those carry to get that film globally to $100 million, or whatever it ends up ending up at? It's just like that's where the math of it all is so different now. Because like look at the Apes film, like there's nothing associated with that film beyond the IP that gets people to go see that movie. There's no actors that anybody could probably name in this new film. The director, most people have no idea who Wes Ball is. And, the movie kind of overperformed. The Godzilla film, Godzilla, the Kong, the new one that Ronald just mentioned that just came out, this week. It's like, sure, Dan Stevens is awesome in it. Brian Tyree Henry these are great actors. We love them. But there's no doubt in my mind that no one's going to see that movie because of who made it, who's in it. It's the IP,
Mm-hmm.
Now certain stars in IP, like I think Twisters is something where that is IP that's from the 90s, maybe is not as like reliable. So you do get younger stars in there. You get Glenn Powell, who's having a moment to see really, is he a new version of this star that we could put in a movie that would have some bankability. And Daisy Edgar Jones has a following from, normal people and like other stuff that she's been in that people really like. And a very diverse young cast, Anthony Ramos, Brendan Perea, like this is great casting. It's just like, what does that help the IP? Because most people are still going to it because it's a Twisters movie,
Right.